What are the best flies for fly fishing on still waters in the UK during winter time? In this video, I'm going to cover the two different types of flies that are the best in winter. Now, it's no secret that the nasty stuff, lures and brightly coloured flies, really come into play in winter with the lack of food. But I'm going to give you a choice in this video. I'm going to give you my 5 best winter flies that are nasty, and also my 5 best flies that are natural, so that you've got a choice to make. Do you want to go naughty or nice for these trout on still waters? Let's chat about it. Okay, so first of all, let's talk about the naughty flies, so the big bright stuff. And when we talk about this, we're definitely going to be talking about the most popular flies to use in winter here. So there's no secret that the most effective flies in winter are big, they're bright, they're not always big. They're not always bright either, but they're for sure nasty. And that's what we're going to talk about in this video. So number 1, we have to talk about the elephant in the room. My favourite, a lot of people's most hated, the bung. Now, bung flies can range from loads of different things, but there are some really clear staples that are excellent. And in winter, with fish becoming lethargic, you get fish moving around them much more slowly. The bung is a great way to be able to present your flies in front of their face. As you've seen in some recent videos, there's been a lot of chat about the bung, because it's now starting to be one of those methods that's really good for the rest of the year and into the start of next year. I decided to make a video on how to do it, and a lot of people are really enjoying it, the new way of using a dry fly rather than a bung. It's not really a new way, it's been done for years on rivers, but I just decided to take one of those flies and show it to you guys, and a lot of people really enjoy it. So the bung is definitely one of those methods that's really useful. Fly number 1 under the bung. It's just a standard egg pattern. So a tungsten beaded egg under the bung has to be, hands down, one of the most consistent catchers all year round. In the winter, however, it really comes into its own. It's one of those patterns that just never fails. It's really, really consistent. You can get it in any certain length of colours. You can see here, I'm holding up a box that has just got colours of pink, green, white, yellow. There's so many different variations you can go with for an egg. My favourite colours, however, are white is normally a really consistent catcher, but then you've also got pink and green. Pink, greens and whites tend to cover all those kind of fish that you're getting. If you've got fish that are quite spooky, they tend to like the white the best. Fish also just love white in general all year round, so if you're fishing egg patterns, I tend to start with white as my colour. Fly number 2, under the bung as well, but this is real nasty stuff. Remember, we're going to come on to the natural stuff in a minute that you can fish in winter, is an egg worm. So this is effectively just an egg pattern that's much bigger and also has a tail on the end of it. So you've got this bit of mobility that's added into the egg. Egg yarn does have quite a decent bit of mobility because it's designed to imitate eggs in a river. It's what it was initially brought out for, and it also turns out that stocked fish love them. So that sort of mobility that you get in the egg yarn material really works well under the bung. If you want to twitch it, or if you want to move your bung a little bit, you can interact a little bit with the bung underneath the fly underneath the bung, and actually inject a bit of mobility into that, and that catches an awful lot of fish. Fly number 3, moving away from the bung, is a pulling apse bloodworm. So a big leggy apse is an amazing fly in winter. If you saw any of my videos last winter, you'll have seen me pulling apse quite a lot. And it is just one of those flies that's super staple. If you're fishing for fish that are hard to catch, you will get them on apse bloodworms. If you're fishing for stockies, you will get them on apse bloodworms. You're able to kind of target fish really well with apse bloodworms. If they're just up for even a little bit of a chase, then you'll get them on this really mobile fly. It has so much mobility under the water. I would normally fish it on a fast glass or a slow glass, and you could pull it around under the water at whatever depth you really want, depending on how long you want to wait for your line to sink. It's a brilliant fly. Fly number 4 is going to be snakes. So snake patterns in general just mean something that is articulated. So it has basically a zero hook at the front. It's just a shank with a bit of either nylon or braid in between, and then the hook at the back, which gives it this crazy good mobility under the water. Now, this is a brilliant pulling fly. It is rather large, and it's one of those things that kind of is the theme for all of these amazing nasty flies, is that fish in the winter are looking for high calorie options. They're looking for easy high calorie options. So if there is something big and nasty in front of them that's moving fast, that's the only thing they really will chase. If there is something big and nasty that's sitting right in front of their face, that's really easy, and that's why the bung is so effective. But a snake, for pulling, they're a really good fly. I prefer black, dark colours in winter time, but white also does really well. Those are normally my two. If the black or the white one isn't working, I'll tend to just swap fly completely, because the pink one, I do find you get some fish on it, but if you're getting fish on the white one, you'll also get fish on the pink one, so I just normally fish the white. That snake flies are just unbelievably good. They're really consistent. And if you want to fish a competition legal version, you can just fish a really big zonker. So a size 10 zonker with a really long tail. The only thing you will get with that is that fish are going to nip the tail a lot, and you won't get as consistent hookup rates as you do with a snake. That's really the only difference between the two. Number 5 is going to be a damsel. Just a classic hothead damsel. Blue flash damsel, hothead damsels. They're really consistent patterns. For wen fish, they've seen a lot of bung flies, they've seen a lot of snakes. Damsel is normally the next thing that I go to just kind of twiddle around. Put it on a midge tip, a really long leader, put a couple of these natural patterns on that we're going to talk about in a minute. But a hothead damsel on the point, you can search the levels of water really well, and you can twiddle it around, you can pull it really fast, you can do whatever you want with the damsel. It's really versatile fly. That's why it has to make top 5 on this list, because the bung flies and the pulling flies, they do their jobs really specifically and they are really good, but a damsel can do everything. It can do everything across the piece, and it's a brilliant fly. So try out a damsel this winter. Now, coming on to the more natural methods, well done for all the purists out there that made it through those horrible flies, had to listen to that filth. But now we're on to the nice stuff. Now, in winter, natural methods do become much harder to fish. There isn't as much food in the water column. Fish aren't really targeting any food items specifically because everything slows down. Not only do the fish slow down, but so do the flies. Now, in order to try and match what the fish naturally eat in the winter, we need to think about what's actually hatching. And in the winter time, there are only really midge pupa that are cutting about in the water column. You will get the odd fly that eventually hatches off that might be something that's not a midge, but generally only midge pupa are active at water temperatures below 5 degrees. So you're not really going to be looking at anything else other than midge. Now, in saying that, midge patterns do offer an awful lot of different strategies of trying to catch those fish. And in wintertime, we're looking at the initial stages of the midge pattern. Now, when midge first are born out of their egg, they become a bloodworm. And no, it's not a big nasty apps bloodworm. Don't have PTSD. It is just a tiny little red buzzer, effectively. So my number one natural pattern in winters is size 14, 16, even smaller than that sometimes, but then you're getting into crazy territory. Size 14 and 16 bright red buzzers are really effective at this time of year because they imitate that initial stage of a midge pupa. So our number one pattern in winter is red buzzers to match that initial stage of the bloodworm and the midge pupa. Number two has to be the next stage up from that, black buzzers. Now, you can fish really any of your favorite black buzzers. They just tend to be a lot smaller in winter. There's not as much energy around for larger buzzers to actually hatch and move up through the water column. So the small amounts of food that are in the water column are going to be basically only suiting those smaller buzzers. So you're going to be imitating much smaller buzzers, sort of size 14 and below. So size 14 black buzzers is the next pattern on this naturals list, and you could normally fish these kind of at the same time because bloodworms, the smallest stage of the buzzer, tend to be very close to the bottom. I would normally fish a 3-fly cast with a bloodworm on the point, so a very small buzzer on the point. You're going to have to wait for it to sink really slowly, and then 2 size 14 black buzzers. In fact, if you even put a bead on your size 14 red buzzers, that's a really good thing to do because it'll just anchor the cast a lot better. So I like to fish a red buzzer on a point and 2 black buzzers up from it and just sit and keep up with it as it's coming back in. You don't want to fish them fast at all because in the winter time even the buzzers move slower. So being as static as possible is essential for fishing buzzers at this time of year. Now, coming into the third pattern, again, within the same strand of we're trying to target midge pupa, but this time it's a dowelback, black dowelbacks. If you're seeing any sort of activity in the water column or a fish coming up rising, that will be midge pupa at this time of year, and it'll more likely than not be black midge pupa. So if you go for a black dowelback, you're going to start to be able to imitate those midge hatching off, or those midge pupa that as they change in the water column to get ready to hatch off. That's your best pattern, is sort of black crunchers or black dowelbacks, but I tend to prefer black dowelbacks because it's very suggestive. It can also be fished as a buzzer, so you'll be able to cross the boundary between fish that are feeding on the buzzers themselves and the starting to emerge nymphs, and quite frankly, if you're fishing it close enough to the top of the water, those hatching off buzzers, those midges that are getting ready to hatch off. So a dowelback covers all of those bases. You're able to catch a lot more fish on that because of it. So number 3 is a black dowelback. Number 4, again, we're moving up the column here. There's a trend here. Number 1 being the one that's lowest down the water column because it's so cold, and as we move up. But in winter, there is the opportunity to get a small hatch of midge that brings on fish to rise. So my number 4 pattern is a tiny black CDC. So either a suspender buzzer or a black CDC both work here, but dry flies do work in winter, and you will get the odd fishing. It's kind of like river fishing at this time of year, where you'll get literally an hour in the afternoon when the water temperature's moved up 2, 3, 4 degrees. That might trigger just enough of a water temperature rise for midge to start moving up in the column pretty quickly, start to hatch off, and then the fish will trigger onto that. But you will not have long at them. You will not have long at all to fish with those fish. So if you are fishing for rising fish in the winter, it's more likely than not going to be small black stuff that they're taking, and a black CDC is my favourite way to go for them. Now, number 5 is very specific to some waters, and that is fry imitations. So if you're fishing a water that does have a decent head of coarse fish, during the winter you're going to have pretty large fry that have survived through the pin fry stage, and rainbows and browns, big browns, also target these fish. So if you've got a little bit of a rise in the water temperature and the fish are becoming a wee bit more excitable, because they do this in winter where they go from being mega lethargic to kind of excitable and chasey as that water temperature rises a wee bit. They don't do it for long, but you will get small chases. And fry imitations are a great way to keep it natural but still go for those fish that are chasing. Now, you could say, oh, a big snake is a fry imitation. In some cases that is the case, but if you want to go for more natural imitations, you could go for unweighted zonkers, you could go for cormorants, you could go for deer hair pin fry imitations. There's so many different ways to imitate fry. You want to kind of be specific to the fry that you're looking at. So if you see roach fry, go for silver and white colors. If you see perch fry, go for black and green. And that's the kind of imitations that you want to go for. But that's the options, guys. If you don't want to go for nasty stuff, you don't have to. You can give yourself a challenge. You can practice these natural methods, and it is fun. So if you go out there and you want to try and catch fish on naturals in winter, go and try it. But there's a list for the nasty stuff as well. So if you want to go out and put a really good bag together on horrible, nasty stuff, then you've got the flies to do it. So tight lines, guys, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.